action with what we call a writ of summons. It's a very brief piece of paper. It would be put all the various carriers that are in your city, or in the county, I'm sorry, on notice that the suit has been commenced and so forth. And with that, we would be able to then include you in the mediation taking place next month in Dallas. We, as I said, have 18 different counties at this point. That, quite honestly, is a function of why there are just so many counties Dave and I could get to. We're still actually, with the mediation coming up, trying to add a few more. As I said, we'll probably have another 4 or so that'll, we think, get involved before that. The benefits to the 911 system is clear. You know, you increase your revenues coming in. We have you'll see mention made in some of the contracts and so forth to a series of demand letters and so forth that we give to the telephone service providers. Quite honestly, that we would, again, working with your solicitor, and we would not be taking up much of her time, by the way, but working with them would we have found through great experience that the only thing that the telephone companies understand and will listen to is straight out hard-fought litigation. Unfortunately, we were hopeful in the beginning that we would have settlements, but they decided that they're going to play the long game, so we're playing the long game. The last bit that we have in the proposal, the handout, is what the compensation provisions are. Typically, as you may know, in plaintiff's litigation, there's 33 1/3 as costs end up getting paid oftentimes by those getting the recovery and so forth. What we have done, and quite honestly have done everywhere, we made a decision that the only way, we knew this was going to be a long road, the only way that would make sense is to do it for a basic provision where the county's clients would get 60%. We would get the 40% and pay all the costs, as I said, 4 years worth at this point along the way. So that is the same deal that all 18 counties have with respect to the direct actions that we have. So that's a not so quick trip through the handout that you have in front of you. Dave, do you have anything to...
Well, yeah, the one thing that, with regard to the amount of recoveries, the numbers that we've been able to put together, our estimate is that the loss of 911 proper billing and collection here in the county is somewhere around $2.5 million a year. We believe that we can go back at least 6, maybe longer, but even so, that when you do a negotiation on a settlement, you might not get all 6. But, you know, if you do the math...
You will not get all 6
yeah,
in the settlement.
So, the numbers are, we think somewhere in the $5 to $15 million range in terms of total damages here in the county. And again, until you get through the whole thing, we're putting the costs in terms of all the professionals that are involved, all the work that we've done. We actually did a raise of investors to provide over $6 million from our efforts on the phone recovery services side. And the law firms like Dilworth here in Pennsylvania have been picking up their share of litigation expenses. With regard, the last thing is with regard to the current mediation opportunity, even though they're the 4th or 5th largest carrier telephone company in the country, they're not massive in this region. So we think the estimate there is something like $80,000 a year that we might recover from them. So if we can get it, 6 years, you're looking at do that math for me, you know, it's like, you know, yeah, close to 400,000, 480,000. You know, again, through the mediation, it may end up being half of that, who knows. But heck, it's money that is there for the taking, and we'd love you guys to be involved in the effort.
And the last thing I've included as a bullet point on a couple of presentations is they're really, it's totally contingent. And as I have said before, you may ask why, you may also ask why not. And I think that's kind of part of what many of your county commissioner colleagues have decided in getting involved in this litigation. But happy to answer any and all questions that anybody might have.
For those commissioners that just came in a little late, we have Tim Carson from Recovery Services, former Recovery Services, and I'm sorry, for Dylan Paxson and David Eckert from Recovery Services. And they're going over a few of the items tonight. They have a handout here in front of us, and specifically the solicitor requested that they be here to answer some additional questions along with additional change.
And this is all memorialized in proposed agreements, which your county solicitor and assistant county solicitor have spent many hours with. I know more about the home rule charter and the administrative code than I may have ever wanted to know. Just leave it at that.
So as a lawyer, I'll ask you, do you have any connections with the Almighty that we can curtail some of this training?
No, not again.
Oh. And the background in naval architecture, I'm not ready to see the device genesis on how to build more. With that being said, let's move forward. Are there any questions from members of the Commissioner Documents?
Yes, this is the second time around. The last tour, before many of you came on, was involved in this, and I was involved in discussions at the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania. And we fought hard for when the new law went into effect to make sure that we kept the ability to go back and be able to collect like this. So I'm a firm supporter of what was being suggested here, and on both of these resolutions, I would like to be added as a co-sponsor. I have a couple of questions in addition, though. You mentioned a figure, maybe $2.5 million or so forth, but that is counting the whole county.
Yes.
The last time we looked at this, we were not able to count Allentown since they were independent. What will the combination of, let's say, the county and Allentown mean going forward?
Allentown is included in that 2.5 number. The line count that we're using to come up with the 2.5 number includes the estimation that we've done in terms of the line count in the county, which is including Allentown. So it's 2.5 million is our estimate. How that is divided up between the county, the rest of the county, and the city of Allentown, we have to get back to you with that number.
Yeah, that's where my
Yeah,
question was heading.
I don't know the answer there. I'd have, anything I would say would be venturing a guess, basically.
But would roughly follow the number of lines in the city versus the county generally.
Since we're talking about primarily commercial accounts, IOP and accounts like that, I would think that even though Allentown's a third of the population of the county, it may have maybe half of the lines.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case.
I think that's probably
pretty accurate. You know, it wouldn't surprise me if they're not 50 to 60% of that 2.5 million. But I don't know. I really don't know. We'll have to do. I can get back to you, as soon as probably tomorrow, an answer there. But I don't have it right now.
But in general, I think it's about time that we got on board with the other counties and started moving forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Doherty, for your insightful questions. Yes, Commissioner
Not
Nothstein.
only Bethlehem, I mean Allentown, but Bethlehem's also part of this.
Yes, correct.
Any other commissioner comments or members of the committee questions? Any other? Yes, Commissioner Osborne.
I think Commissioner Holt.
Okay, Commissioner Hall, go ahead.
So the $2.5 million is what we would sort of gross from this countywide. And then when we're looking at the fees, like I was a little confused still on how the whole fee structure works. So you're taking out, the 40% is going to be off after you take off the expenses of, what is the, yeah.
The 40% includes all expenses that we would incur. There's going to be nothing else added to that. So that it's, instead of like maybe being at 33 1/3 and then having to pay for expert witnesses and additional type of testimony and things like that, it's all, we're capping it at 40%. We'll pay for all the expenses from our 40%. The $2.5 million is only an annual estimate. We think we're going to be able to go back as far as 6, maybe longer under Pennsylvania civil legal.
Pennsylvania law is not definitive with respect to applicable statutes of limitations. We have some, what some would say, creative, some of the telephone companies would probably say overly creative theories by which we might be able to get beyond what is typically a 2-year provision with for tort liability, 6 years for contract theories and so forth. But all of that remains to be seen, and will probably be litigated along the way. We know that that's their modus operandi, is when in doubt, see if they can appeal to another court.
But to make the math simple, let's assume we were to get a $10 million settlement from all the carriers once it's globally, done. $6 million would end up with the county, and $4 million would get paid to phone recovery services and bill it taxes. Of course, along the lines, that's not all profit to us, because we've spent a lot of money already, just covering our costs with expert witnesses and data research and on and on and on. So, but it's simple math. That's the sort of thing that we see.
Okay, because when I read the contract, it talked about the net fee deficiency amount. So I wasn't sure, it sounded like there was some being taken off and then there was a distribution, so I was still a little confused by that.
The particular contract may talk in those terms, but that's just with respect to certain court costs, I think. And if that were a factor, we would strike that. I mean, quite honestly, it's not much in the way of money that way.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Osborne.
Thank you, Commissioner Kramer. I have one question that I know you can answer, and one that really isn't directed at you, but is a question that I would like to have the answer to. The first one is relatively minor, but where would your office be physically?
I'm in Pottstown.
Okay.
Okay, and
I'm in Philadelphia.
Right, I see your letterhead. I guess it's possible I see Philadelphia and New Jersey. So where would the staff be physically located who's doing this work? Or is it you?
Me and my staff would be doing it in Philadelphia.
Okay.
The work of,
Yeah,
with respect to Gilbert Paxson.
For phone recovery services, most of the folks that are doing all of the analytical data and, all the, doing all the work in terms of finding out exactly what phone counts are and getting into discovery and so forth, are down in Huntsville, Alabama. That's where most of those people are domiciled. The only phone recovery...
That's the domicile of our Rosetta Stone.
Yeah, that's where Roger Snyder and his team work. The only person that with phone recovery services in Pennsylvania is me.
Okay. All right. And my second question, which, isn't directed at you, but I'm interested in it, the monies that are netted from their service, is there going to be a separate account in the budget for that money to be accounted for?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
For instance,
Question we talked about with a recovery.
yes, the net to the county. I'm asking for, from an accounting point of view, what line item in the budget would that be?
They wouldn't know that.
I know they wouldn't know that.
And we can get to that, and well, go ahead, Bill, you're already up here.
And I was the director of administration. When we get to that point, Tim Reeves and I will decide and bring forward to the board what line item the warrant should be located.
Thank you.
We're not there yet.
Thanks, Ed. I just want to make sure that.
The check is
In the mail.
It'll go to the 911
Something about
fund.
not being willing to.
911 fund.
We have another, we have.
Rick wants it in the 911 fund.
Yeah, I wanted it separated out as my.
General.
Yeah, I will say, generally speaking,
We're gonna arm wrestle.
This says general fund.
generally speaking, most of the boards of commissioners have thought that they would apply those monies initially to the next generation 911 and so forth, the capital needs of the system. And what's left over is up to the wisdom of the commissioners.
Thank you. Any other further comments or questions for David?
Commissioners, as we, Triple James, Director General Services. Commissioners, as you know, our first goal would be to replace the amount of general operating money that was contributed to the 911 fund over the last several years. And that could be in excess of $1 million or $2 million. Once that money is received into our account, I would then urge this commissioner board to place that money in the 911 fund to be used appropriately for capital improvements to our system going forward. That's the way we believe this would happen from day one, and I think that's what has been communicated to the commissioners in the past.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for these two gentlemen? Yes, Commissioner Hall.
Have you seen if Allentown, have you approached Allentown at all about
You're getting million.
participating in this?
I have not, but I did speak with a gentleman who is their financial advisor about it. And I'm not exactly sure what Allentown's position is. I mean, if you want us to reach out to them, we can, but as of right now, that hasn't moved forward.
Just stay up here, Rick.
Excuse me. Commissioners, we have no authority, and our arrangement with these two gentlemen will be specifically to the county of Lehigh as it relates to 911. In the event they wish to reach out to the Allentown and or Bethlehem, which have 911 centers in our counties, they're more than willing to do so. I would say go ahead. But at this point, what I would try to avoid is us becoming a clearinghouse for that money and allowing ourselves then to be caught in some kind of a legal snafu with the two cities. So commissioners, to me, it's very clear. It's the county of Lehigh's 911 center, and it'll be the burden of these two gentlemen to articulate those phone lines accurately and provide us with the money that we deserve.
I guess where I'm confused is because we have, the way this contract reads, or as it talks about, we're like 6 to 18 months perhaps going out. And when I look 6 to 18 months out, was that course of time, the Allentown 911, would that have occurred then?
Commissioner, the reality is pre-July 1st of 2015 is really the target here. Anything beyond July 1st of 2015 would go to the state of Pennsylvania for their allocation. We are not currently receiving monies from the telecom industry directly. That money since that time has been negotiated with our state legislation, and it goes to the state. They in turn allocate us. So if the state gets more money, we would argue that we would get it, but we would get the portion that's related to Lehigh County. If Allentown so desires, then they would be allocated monies to them. But we would not have a benefit of any monies per se beyond July 1st of 2015.
August.
August 3rd.
Okay.
Any other questions, Commissioner Hall?
I have other ones, but I can wait until the main meeting to ask the remainder.
If there's no further questions for Mr. Eckert and Mr. Carson, we have two resolutions in front of us. Last, Mr. Mulchaney come up on that, but we also have a motion. So how do we handle a motion? We don't have to take a recommendation on the motion. That comes before the full board. Right. So, Rick, is there any, General, I think that's all we have for you. Thank you for your time. Mr. Mulchaney, if you would, I would prefer that we would skip the first item on the agenda, which is the snow and farming thing, and might as well go right into these next two resolutions that we have.
I'll go over if you want. What would you like?
Let's do that. Let's do 1847 and 1848.
And I don't have it in front of me, so are we
Okay,
talking
so
about
that's-
architecture or?
No, just the Dilbert tax.
Oh, there,
Yes.
oh, we're still on them, huh? Okay. Well, Commissioners, I believe the administration supports the initiative to pursue our legal opportunity. Whether it's $1 million or $500,000, I don't know the answer, but I do believe these two vendors have experience with other Pennsylvania counties as well as others throughout the United States. And it appears that we wouldn't want to let this slide by without taking an opportunity to explore our options. Now, Commissioners, I will add, probably what we'll find, and I think Commissioner Dockery mentioned this, is that we're talking about businesses and businesses' phone lines. Because at my house, I have one phone line, and I remitted my monies, and it went to the 911 fund. So we want to be extremely careful, and that was a consideration we made 3 or 4 years ago with this topic. We want to be considerate, but at the same time, it's the telecom industry's responsibility to charge the businesses the appropriate amount of monies. And if they misled or mismanaged or simply made an error, the responsibility is still theirs. And I'm hoping that we have some authority to make a claim against that using the services of both Dilworth and phone recovery.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to, I guess we have to have a motion for each resolution.
I will make a motion to forward both resolutions with positive recommendation.
Sounds good. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Right, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right, so the motion carries. So we'll be forwarding resolution 2018-47 and 2048 to the full board for positive recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Granis, any reason why our... Thank you.
I don't think so. We're fine.
I had a couple more questions for them, so we're there to be for the meeting, I would ask them now.
Okay, we can do that, if you don't mind.
We have some additional.
We have some additional questions.
Great.
Okay.
You have to come to the podium.
Yeah.
We're very parochial.
Oh,
First
you want
off,
to do it right now?
I'll work on trying to find out what the breakdown will be between
Okay.
the county, Allentown, and Bethlehem. Okay, that shouldn't take me but a day or two. And then I'll get that distributed to me, and then you'll, perfect. So,
Thank you, Mr. Eckert, and then you can back to Commissioner Holmes.
I'm sorry, Amanda, I interrupted, or Mr. Holt, I interrupted.
Commissioner Granis, I would also add that there are opportunities for them to reach out. What is masked in this whole process is that they deal with counties. But as it relates to 911, the city of Allentown and the city of Bethlehem have the same rights as counties as it relates to 911. So I would urge them to seek that opportunity with those two administrations.
Yeah, we've started that process.
Excuse me, you're not picked up on the microphone or the
Right.
computer.
Can you come to the
You
podium?
have to come to
You have to get back to the podium. Commissioner Holmes, do you have any other questions?
Yeah.
We'd like to try to schedule another business we'd like to go through.
we have started the process, I think, in Allentown, and I know a couple of years ago we met with the Bethlehem folks. So we'll be revisiting it with them as well. You know, where that goes, I'll let you know when we know. So.
You made the remark that you had one more than you lost with this. So what have you, that's what I heard, I did misheard. But have you
One more.
lost any of the cases or the work that you've done so far that
Oh,
you've done
boy.
other places, or?
Yeah, well, we've got cases going in, 50-some jurisdictions, and there are all sorts of motions that we've won, motions that we've lost, motions that we've then appealed, motions that we've won that have been appealed. It's an ongoing process.
Most relevant would be the situation in Pennsylvania, obviously working under the Pennsylvania laws. In Pennsylvania, we successfully fought and won preliminary objection motions in 4 or 5 counties initially: Delaware, Chester, Berks, I forget, 1 or 2 others. Dauphin County, right. And we found a judge in Butler County, who did not agree with the fact that counties should have standing in Pennsylvania. That was a surprise to us. It was a surprise to PEMA, who they were saying was the sole one withstanding. So we took the decision of the Butler County judge and appealed to the Commonwealth Court and won that case. The telephone service companies immediately appealed to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, so that matter has been briefed there. So that's kind of where Pennsylvania is at this point. We're waiting for that Supreme Court ruling to come down. But we have different again, as Dave is saying, we have all kinds of litigation going and all kinds of different issues being raised and so forth across the country.
Commissioner Dodd.
To me, this is a no-brainer.
Yes.
If we do nothing, we get nothing.
Yeah.
If we climb on board, we may get a couple $1 million. So let's go. Even if it's only 100,000, we're ahead.
I'll make one comment, which is Doug Hill, who is many of you probably know, is the executive director of the county commissioners. It was my privilege to sit down with him when the first draft of the new 911 law came out, and I said, Doug, what do you think about the amnesty provision? And Doug said, well, no, there's no amnesty provision and so forth. And I pointed out that the telephone companies, right from day one, have been very concerned about their exposure here and had somehow managed to get an amnesty provision that was embedded in page 34 in the fine print. Which we were successfully able to get removed upon pointing that out to relevant senators and representatives. But it's been a concern to them, and well, it should be.
Thank you, Mr. Carson.
One other thing.
Briefly.
When we looked at this previously, there were concerns that FEMA had about this. Are they supportive of your efforts now or no?
Well, FEMA actually, back with the Butler case, for instance, wrote a brief in support of our efforts that went to went to the Butler County judge to basically ask her to change her mind, and then was also used when we went to the Commonwealth Court of Appeals. So FEMA, actually, we talked to them relatively
On a regular
basis, and they've been working with Roger Schneider at Phone Recovery Services, because what was also in the new legislation, it gives FEMA a much more powerful,
limited audit
but much more powerful than it
capability.
was. So they're going to be working on trying to audit the situations around the Commonwealth under the new act. And they're going to find, I think, the same problems.
Thank you, gentlemen. Commissioners, is there any questions for Mr. Carson or Mr. Director? I recommend that you forward them through Mr. Mulchaney, and we'll get those questions answered. You've been more than cooperative as far as willing to address your questions outside of this venue.
And Commissioner Holt, we will be making whatever has to be done to make it clear that on the debt versus otherwise, that there is no even in the event of a recovery, no expenses that are assessed against the county.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So we have a positive recommendation in these resolutions. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda. And we'll do 2018-46. Mr. Mulchaney, if you'd like to talk to us about that. Stone Farmer. Is there any other ones that you'd like to combine together with that? Bear the eyes at and...
Yeah, Commissioners, before you are two resolutions this evening to renew contracts, one for architectural services and the other for mechanical, electrical engineering. Commissioners, as we've done in the past, we contract with individual firms to provide services under a blanket agreement for small, medium, and emergency projects. These are the blanket contract renewals. Again, in the past, we used to contract for 2 or 3 years at one time, and then the decision was to actually make this process an annual renewal in front of the board. Therefore, before you this evening are the set of architectural and the set of mechanical electrical to renew for 1 year. The vendors have all met the standards of our blanket agreement contract. They are holding their rates as is part of the contractual obligation on them. And again, Commissioners, this is for small, medium, and emergency projects. Even if we do something that's a little bit larger than a bread box, we may be able to use one of these blanket agreement vendors. If we do, for example, we did this in a project for juvenile holding, we'll ask them to still submit under an RFP using this particular price structure. So it gives us a chance to narrow in on some of our expertise locally and have these vendors supply us with bids in a fairly quick manner. So, Commissioners, I'm recommending that you allow these contracts to be renewed for 1 year. You will see the third set, which is the civil and structural engineering blanket agreements coming to you at a future meeting, probably the next meeting. I just didn't have the paperwork completed for tonight. Commissioners, any questions?
Any questions from members of the board? Commissioner Nothstein.
Rick, in regards to Spillman Farmer contract, my understanding and my recollection is that they were mentioning the Lowski pay-to-play issues. Think it's smart to do business with that?
I believe Commissioner Nothstein that it is acceptable to do business with Spillman Farmer. They were mentioned with an issue with the pool, as I'm sure you all know. They were vindicated of any wrongdoing. In fact, they ended up being a witness for the prosecution. They were not donating money to the city of Allentown. There was no contributions made. There was no contributions being made to any Lehigh County holding offices and or people running for Lehigh County office. And further, it's their policy not to contribute monies. Therefore, I believe their policy is tight and clean, and they are worthy of doing business with the county.
Any other questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion? I guess we can take these both together as well for 2018-46 and for 2018-49. Do I have a motion to move this forward with a positive recommendation to the full board?
move forward with a positive recommendation.
Motion by Commissioner Dockett. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Brown. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So I move the both of these resolutions forward to tonight's meeting with the full board.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item I think we have on here would be Bill 2018-25. Approving a donation of a male bison to the Catoctin Zoo and Wildlife Reserve.
Yes, Commissioners, just a little background. The opportunity for us to donate this bison became available after our bison being on the ACA's listserv for transporting animals across accredited zoos. When an animal is not chosen by an ACA zoo, the listserv is given to the next round of available zoos. This zoo, and I understand some of the concern over the years, is not an ACA accredited zoo. They've also had some of their issues that I know many of you have read. ACA has, however, inspected this zoo and has recently allowed them to get species, survival species program animals, which is a significant item in the zoo world. So the Lehigh Valley Zoo animal curator reported to me that they did pass the inspection that is required. However, she added that in the event there's concern, they could reach out again and do a little bit more in terms of ensuring the husbandry for our male bison. There isn't a plan to move this animal for another month or two. Typically, we'll move an animal like this in the fall, not in the summer months with the heat, transporting an animal across the state line. So, Commissioners, we do have some time if the Commissioner Group would like us to investigate a little bit more and ask Lehigh Valley Zoo to do so. In the event an ACA zoo does come forward and say they want the animal, they always take preference for us. We would always go to an ACA accredited zoo first. And then, Commissioners, your question might be, well, what happens in the event we don't choose this particular zoo and no ACA zoo steps up? What do we do with the animal? It quite honestly would probably need some type of birth control. We would probably have to do something to sterilize the animal in terms of restricting that male from evolving into a challenge to the existing dominant alpha bison in the herd. So we have options that can give us more time in the event the board would like to take some more time and have the Lehigh Valley Zoo do some investigation. And I talked to them this afternoon about that.
Any questions from members of the committee? Commissioner Dockett.
Go ahead, Commissioner Brown.
Commissioner Brown.
I was going to ask, what was the phone conversation? I mean, were they recommending to move forward?
They're recommending.
I mean, I'm trusting them, actually.
Right.
I'm trusting that they know what's going on. So.
When they give us the recommendation, they give us the recommendation based upon them doing their inspection and they're recommending. However, they understand the ultimate decision maker isn't the zoo, it's the county because there are animals. So they understood that this afternoon, and they're giving us some time if we wish to have them do a little bit more exploratory investigation.
I just want to say that I trust them. There's somebody that does this full time on here to take their recommendation. So if they're recommending it, then I'm gonna. I know there's some concern, but I think I'll move forward.
Commissioner Dockett.
Yes, you had me worried for a while. I thought you were going to say the alternative was going to be a large barbecue.
Commissioner
I hope, if I believe all of the reports that I hear about Catoctin, because I've also heard from other people that it's a very well-run facility, and our own Glenn Eckert states that he's been there and he feels that it is much nicer than the Lehigh Valley Zoo. And they looking online, they have tigers, they have jaguars, they have many animals that we would be happy to have here. But as Commissioner Brown said, if ACA is satisfied with it, I'm satisfied with it also.
Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Nothstein.
So you're saying it's not AZA accredited, but AZA has checked it out recently and said, for this kind of animal to go there, we're okay with that?
I don't think for this kind of animal, I think to give them animals that are in the species survival program, the SSP program, which is what the AZAs are all about. So they've approved them to get some animals that are currently in the program. And there's reasons why they trade animals, because you don't want to dilute the gene pool of the SSP animals. So they'll place these animals for needs to make sure that we're breeding in the proper manner. In this case, they've sent animals in the program to this particular zoo recently. They said within the last year. And that inspection they passed. But again, I can reach out to Commissioner Hartzell and see if I can get a little bit more information if you wish. This decision takes 2 readings, therefore I can do something between now and next Commissioner meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. Mulchaney, I guess I'd like to add that in dealt with several years of bison and all kinds of stories in the past life. It's my understanding that AZA accredited facilities aren't necessarily demanding bison. So it's very hard to trade with an AZA facility for an animal of this nature. The other thing is bison are relatively inexpensive, but it comes down to the inoculations that we have to have for the herd, and also the contraceptives, which we used to do with our prior 2003, 2004, whatever, before we decided we were going to have some young animals growing. These are herd animals. They do have a herd instinct, and that's why we're looking at this. So that being said, I appreciate the fact that you're giving us additional time to look into this. I would ask the question, if you know how many other bison Catoctin has, do they have any other bison there?
I will check that. I don't have that number, and I hate to take a guess.
I know Island Park only had one when I went down to Northstown years ago, when we had several. But then again, on the flip side, we gave 12 bison to Dollywood, and it caused us a big heart. So I trust you to do your due diligence, and I know these are the county animals and not the zoological animals, because the bison and the elk really are under our control.
And Commissioner, keep in mind, you raised a very important issue. These animals are not inspected per se by the AZA. They are inspected by the USDA when they come in. However, the zoo manages that inspection for the elk and bison for the county of Lehigh. However, when they do, this is AZA, do their inspections every 5 years, they always go up to the bison and the elk and do observe how the county is maintaining the herds. And we usually get very good scores for how we manage the husbandry of those animals.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions on this? If not, do I hear a motion to move this forward?
So moved.
All right, so a motion by Commissioner Brown, second by Commissioner Doherty. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move this forward with positive recommendations to the full board for tonight. Okay, so the next couple items we have on here are, let's see what's left. We have questions that were promised on the $5 registration fee and an update on the Cedar Brook facility. So Rick, I'm going to leave that up to you, what you decide first.
Well, I really,
There were some other updates you wanted to give us too, but I don't see that on the agenda. Did we move those off like
I
CCAR?
thought it might be really pushing
It
the
would.
line, but
Okay. Well, let's do this. Let's do an update on the Cedar Brook facility. If that's what you have.
okay, Commissioners, we have Jason here, our county administrator for Cedar Brook. Commissioners, as you know, back in May, we were meeting after we shortlisted our A&E down to 2 vendors. And the questions at the time were, how are we going to manage our D-wing renovation, knowing that the federal codes for the federal standards for how we create the ratios of beds to bathrooms has changed. So, of course, we're always attempting to utilize the assets to the best of our ability. So during that question, we met with those vendors, and we talked about, do we do less construction? Do we do nothing except just fix the HVAC, do some work painting, clean the place up, change the light bulbs, don't do anything other than remove 2 beds from the 4-bed rooms that are on each floor. Just do that, we'll meet the bed requirement, we won't meet the bathroom requirement, but we would live under the current regulation waiver that we currently have. Do we do something else? Do we get creative and try to put bathrooms into the code? And that was a huge project for them in terms of, let's take a look how tight it is on your D-wing and see if we can do it. Commissioners, we did a variety of things called innies and outies, and bear with me. This is not belly buttons. This is maybe stacking bathrooms on the outside of the facility to create bathrooms for each room. Possibly using inside bathrooms as well to try to accommodate the new federal requirement. Well, Commissioners, the reality was when we looked at this, and they worked on it, meaning the vendors, came back and said, you're not going to do it for less money than what you have in your plan. And the realities are, it could be $5 to $7 million of additional expense for doing what you want to do by adding these bathrooms to the facility. Now, Commissioners, you'll hear in a few minutes that if we don't do anything there with bathrooms, we'd save about $8 million. So it really does resonate to me that if we're going to put twice as many bathrooms in, you know, the expense could very well be doubling that particular part of the bid. So we were looking at, do we want to spend more money? And if we could spend more money and do that, would we achieve the bathrooms or the beds to bathroom ratio? And we believe we would. But they said we may still have to lose additional beds on the floor. And Commissioners, where this got alarming to us, our committee, was we needed 41 beds on that floor. If we drop it to 30 beds or 35 beds, it would require us to potentially raise the tower by 1 additional floor or half a floor to accommodate the lost beds, which even exacerbates the issue. So we step into this concern saying it could very well be $5 to $7 million if it can work, but if we spend that money and we still have to lose beds, why would you do that? So you might end up spending X amount of money, and we know it could be more expensive than $5 or $7 million to add an additional floor on the new wing. In addition to that, Commissioners, the current code for a tower starts on the 5th floor. So if we can keep this to 4, it's better. Now, we already have the D-wing, which is 7, I understand that. But it seems in our best interest if we're building to keep it under 5. So we spent a lot of time over the summer working on this particular issue. And there were a variety of opportunities for people to talk about what they thought. One of the ideas was, do we really want the bathrooms in a dementia wing? Or do we want space? Do we believe that sensory perception for dementia is more important than the bathroom environment? So we played with that model for a while, realizing that do we want to make a recommendation to the board that for a particular type of dementia that we would actually ask you to save $8 million and don't do this because it may in fact be better for the residents. Commissioners, we met with the vendors, with Good Shepherd, with the Cedar Brook administration, as well as the Cedar Brook nursing. And Commissioners, I will tell you, it was unanimous. The nursing believed that the bathroom upgrade that we had planned was an advantage to not just the care, but to the perceived care from the family. They hear this most often. Their loved one has to walk down the hall to go to the bathroom, to use the toilet. So this was unanimous, and this was everyone, including the infectious disease nurse, who said typically, if she had her way, there would be one bathroom for one patient, because in theory, you would be less likely to transmit disease. So we went from that opinion, which isn't feasible in our economic position, to saying what is feasible. So we went back to the drawing board. We met again with Good Shepherd and the administration of Cedar Brook, and we said, what would it take for us to execute the existing plan? And what we agreed upon was it would take a waiver. We're not going to be able to just build that. We're going to have to get a waiver to build what we specified. However, although the waiver isn't a guarantee, the waiver has a great story behind it. We're improving our facility. We're meeting the requirements and exceeding for the new facility. Our Fountain Hill campus also meets the requirements. So we're talking about the D-Wing, and we're talking about upgrading from communal bathrooms to what's commonly referred to as Jack and Jill. We know that Milker Hole or Roth Mars, I'll be careful how I say that because we need a word, would be commissioned to draw the necessary specifications for the waiver request. And then I met with Sam Miranda from Good Shepherd and spoke with him about how often do they do waivers, and I was surprised to hear they actually do them often. They request waivers. And he said that it's a process that he's well familiar with, and Cedar Brook would receive the Good Shepherd leadership to help us make that application. My recommendation, Commissioners, is that we pursue the plan, as we know, but we don't commission for the AAB just yet until we actually have the waiver. When we have the waiver, I think then we're 100% solid that our plan will meet all of the coding requirements of our design. In the event we take action now and we don't receive the waiver, I think there would be lots of disappointment from the residents if we don't upgrade. Certainly there would be from the Cedar Brook nursing staff. And if we do, Commissioners, upgrade to some combination of bathrooms, we'd be in a position where we'd be adding double-digit million-dollar expenses to this project. So it's our belief as a committee that we engage a A&E vendor, and we engage Good Shepherd along with the Cedar Brook administration to actively pursue the waiver and do it very quickly so that we can continue to manage the Cedar Brook project going forward. Commissioners, there's a lot of information I have in your packet. I didn't read it verbatim, but the information I discussed is located in the package. So, is there any questions?
So I'll open this up to the full board. Any questions from Commissioner Hall?
Is there any concern, so let's say we get the waiver. We build the facility using the waiver. 10 years down the road, 5 years, whatever it is, we need to do something at the facility. Is it our experience right now that we have any difficulty performing work at any of the facilities because we have the waiver where you can't do this improvement unless you fix something else over here that's not in accordance with code, or is that an issue at all?
Has that been an experience you ever?
I have not. The Jason Camillo, Assistant Administrator of Cedar Brook. I have not had any experience with that before. With there being an issue and having them to seek another waiver or difficulty performing additional work.
Or so when there's work that needs to be done there at either of the facilities, they don't prevent you from moving forward with that work. You've been able to do all the work you wanted to do there and haven't had to make improvements elsewhere in order to, from a coding perspective.
Only when the project approaches the status of major construction do you have to consider potential waiver status.
You missed the call.
All right, thank
You
you.
missed the phone call.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Marshall?
Any idea how long it would take to find out if we get to a waiver?
I do not have the answer to that question. As Rick Mulchaney had indicated, Good Shepherd has an extensive amount of experience doing this. We met with them several weeks ago at their office, and this is something that they regularly do.
I don't know the time. I didn't put it on the schedule, the time, because it was unclear how long, but it is something I will specifically talk to the Good Shepherd administration and send an answer to this board.
Commissioner Osborne?
Thank you. I have several questions, but I can wait till actually after this evening. But I would like to make one comment, and it's for all the staff and the administration. I'm heartened to hear that we want to stick to the original specifications. I really am, because I was extremely disappointed when I thought perhaps we would go in the other direction. We spent a lot of time on this subject in the last couple of years, and at the heart of it was, what do the families and the people who have members, family members, friends in Cedar Brook, what do they expect? What do we want them to have? And how are we going to market this facility for the care that we want to give them? So my comment is, I'm heartened to hear the decision. Thank you.
And Commissioner Osborne, let me be clear, there was a feisty conversation about this during our meeting. And when we discussed it with those who provide the day in, day out resident care, it was overwhelming. This improvement will mean so much to the morale of the staff, but most importantly, it'll improve the care of the resident, and it'll improve the well-being of the resident's family, which was unanimous in the conversations that I've had.
Commissioner Hall?
To clarify one thing, I heard sort of two different things, so I just wanted to make sure. When you talked about adding in the bathrooms to bring it up to code, I thought I heard you say that it could be done and not meet any bed loss, but then later on I heard you say it may need up to 15 beds. So are both those things true? Is it possible that there might not be any bed loss with that option, and there also may be up to 15?
That's correct. That's what makes this really difficult. Commissioner Holt, the reality is there's a hunch that we can do it, but the hunch isn't over 50% guaranteeing us that we would still have to lose beds, which would put us in a position of being under the 670 beds that we believed was the right number. And Commissioner Holt, further, the challenging question to the Cedar Brook administration and nursing was, we believe that the larger the wing, up to the max of 60, the more efficient the nursing resident care is. So if we start losing that, we're down to 30 or 35 beds again, the reality could be that we would be moving our efficiencies in the wrong direction. Very similar to what you might see in the B&C wing. So there was a lot of discussion about the risk of seeing some bed loss as well. But the answer, yes, both of those are still out there. If we wanted to, commission a study, an engineering and architectural study, to go out and actually manage how that would look. That can happen as well, but it's going to cost us more money.
Do you get the study done, or?
I can commission a study.
Well, you said it's gonna cost us more money. I understand that.
Oh,
Are
no.
you referring to the 5 to 7 million it would cost us more? Or are you talking about the work to find out?
No, I mean, it'll be costing us more money for the project. Sure, it'll cost us money to have,
All right, I just
people
wanted to
like it,
clarify.
but they're not doing it for free.
I just wanted to clarify what you meant there. So, so is there, so I'm just trying to understand, so what would, so to find out whether we're at the 0 bed loss or the 15 bed loss, you're saying would require a study to find that out?
Correct.
And is there thought, in the conversations with the committee, was there thought to be value in making that determination?
There was not. The committee believed the Jack and Jill model would be an improvement, would be for the D-Wing, and the value that we would present to our residents and to the residents' family, along with the nursing, could be achieved with the Jack and Jill. And Jason, I don't know from an administration perspective, that's what I heard.
Yeah, Rick is absolutely accurate. There would be a very large amount of value in creating individual bathrooms. It's a 4-to-1, 4 residents to 1 bathroom model. It is a substantial improvement to what we have now, and adding bathrooms is what I feel the general public wants us to do with this project. It's one of the most important aspects of the project, and it's creating that good balance between improving the quality of life and also being fiscally responsible.
I have a question for you, gentlemen. Last time I was in a meeting with you, we had one call in, and Mr. Harsley was in the same meeting. I left with the sense that chances of obtaining the waiver, we really weren't too confident because the regulations were new. It's never really been done before under this new regulation. Has that changed?
It has.
It has.
It has. They believe that we contacted the Department of Health here in Pennsylvania, and they are not currently auditing for that requirement. And Commissioner Graham I'm not going to say they won't ever, and we're not going to take just some person's advice in Harrisburg. We'd like to see it in writing to protect the county, but their sentiment was that this requirement is mostly for new. But it doesn't say that. We have to be careful here. So when we revisited, made the contacts to the Pennsylvania Department of Health, we believe that there is an opportunity, a very good, strong chance we'll get this waiver here.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from members of the board? Is there any need for Jason to stay through the meeting? I don't know.
There's no legislative action, so.
No, that's correct.
But he can stay.
Any comments from members of the public? Wait a minute. This is a particular line, floodlight. Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much, Jason. Yes. We'll move on to the next item then, and that's promised update on the or opportunity to ask additional questions on the Act 89 $5 registration fee. Thank you for coming here tonight, Rick, to address those concerns.
Mr. Graham, as you know, we've been having discussions about this for a little while, starting the capital plan. Then we moved into a conversation during leadership, and then at the previous chair's review. The reality is this is still in draft mode. This isn't polished up and tidied up and saying this is what the plan is. This is the administration's draft of what we believe is a plan to improve the infrastructure in Lehigh County for both Lehigh County proper owned bridges and, well, we don't have roads, bridges, and possibly municipality bridges and even roads. So this is not the plan that I'm asking you to vote on. This is still in draft, and we're gaining experience for what kind of ebb and flow this project will take. I do know there was a lot of conversation about, are we going to hurt the county? No, it's county first mile. I mean, the reality is, it's extremely important for us with this pool of available funding to enhance our infrastructure, improve our assets, utilize those assets to the best of our ability. There comes a time, Commissioners, when one of our assets matches up against a community's asset. And in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I think I'd be thrilled if the Commonwealth Commission PennDOT to do all roadway and bridge work as they may do in other states. They don't do that here. So we could be left with us replacing a bridge, and then the asset just next to that bridge could be dilapidated. So the opportunity here is for us to step back and look at the entire transportation grid and make some decisions on how best to improve the grid for our citizens and the businesses that do business here in the county. I know, Commissioners, this is a tool. This is not the end all. I don't believe this fee structure would automatically fix the infrastructure needs of the county. It won't. It gives us the ability, though, to prioritize with the commissioners and the administration projects inside our county and inside the municipalities inside our county. As you know, Commissioners, we have a $2.5 billion long-range transportation plan. That plan is fiscally constrained by the federal government. The federal government will allocate this funding for the Lehigh Valley over the next 25, 30 years. In the short term, you'll hear us talk about the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program, and in the TIP, we have several bridges right now. We're lucky enough to have some of our bridges make it to the TIP. So getting on the long-range plan is key number one, and I am asking municipalities, as well as our own county, to make sure that all of our assets are on the plan. That's a key. The Planning Commission, I think, has unveiled a new process where they're looking to group region planning and talk to those individual groups about submitting their infrastructure needs to the Planning Commission to see if it's possible to get them on the long-range transportation plan. Getting on the plan doesn't mean we're done, because now the feds are going to pick up 80% of the money. What it means is that there's always another project that might be deemed more important. And as these projects start to manage through that long-range transportation plan, the more significant projects take priority. Right now, the largest priority out of our $2.5 billion is the nearly $900 million for the 22 road expansion, which included the Lehigh River Bridge. Commissioners, that was deemed as the most critical component of our Lehigh Valley transportation plan. Mosserville Bridge, which is on the plan, long-range transportation plan, is not even close to moving up to be considered as part of the TIP, but it's on the plan. And I think the first step in this is ensuring, and that's why I led with the transportation study information in your packet. We've got to do a good job in our COG of getting the municipalities to get their projects in. Because you never know. They might get something approved. Hell, we got Reading Road Bridge approved, which shocked me that that would make it to the level of being on the long-range transportation plan. It is moved down to where it probably will be in the next 10. So that's a positive. If you don't get on the list, you're never going to get on the TIP. If you don't get on the TIP, you're never getting federal or state money. Recently, a seasoned municipality did recognize the needs for that to get on the plan. And these are people that have been doing this for years and years. So there's a lot of education in addition to asking for money and then giving somebody money. It's about, can we make this process better? Also, Commissioners, you know that over the years, you've heard me talk about it, but you've read in the paper, these P3 opportunities that spring up from time to time. Now, although Northampton County rushed out and did something, PennDOT advised Lehigh County to take a step back, analyze the entire region, find out bridges of like type, of like structural deficiency grading, and build packages that way, because you clearly get a bigger bang for the buck if you can package your rural bridges. Now, we can do that with our own bridges, or we may be able to do that with some municipality bridges as well. So there's opportunities here. This is all about asset utilization, creating the opportunity. Commissioners, it works best when you have an opportunity with money, because now it really gives us something to do. So, to me, this plan, the draft that you see before you, isn't giving money away. Last year, you heard a plan that did have in its plan specific amounts of money to be given to municipalities. That's not what this plan is. Last year, you heard about a plan that talked about using bond funding, financing through bond, and using the Act 89 monies to pay the bond back. That's not what this plan is. This plan is not any of those two, but it is executing the $5, building that pool of money, working together with this Board of Commissioners and the administration, the executive, and creating opportunity for us to stay ahead of Pennsylvania's declining infrastructure needs as it relates specifically to our county. So, Commissioners, there's a bunch of bridges on the list. Are those bridges going to fall into the creeks or rivers that they cross? No, they're not. We have a capital plan that I presented that listed, I believe, 13 or 14 bridges that talk specifically about what we're going to do to keep them working for the next 5 years. But at any given point, an objective inspection by PennDOT to one of our bridges could demonstrate the need to close or take decisive priority 1 action. Priority 1 actions mean we have 7 days to respond, and we have to have the project completed in 6 months. When it's so bad, we have to close the bridge. Now that happens. We hate to do it, but it does happen. Our plan is to keep those bridges open. That's what you saw in the plan that I presented to you during the capital plan process. Today I'm saying, what if one of those bridges goes? Respectively, the Hossendale Bridge and the Baker's Corner Bridge, 2 bridges I know you're familiar with. Those 2 bridges cost $1 million and $1.5 million respectively. Now we can argue that Baker's Corner with some temporary bridge work was inflated. You're absolutely correct. But Commissioners, it's going to cost $1 million probably for a bridge. I mean, I think it'd be naive to think we can do a bridge for less. Can we? Probably, but on average, $1 million. So, what if? We have bridges in our county, not owned by our county, owned by municipalities. Winchester and Bear Road up in Low Hill Township. Commissioners, the bridges are in dire need of extensive repair, potentially replacement. They've asked us, what can we do? First answer was, you got to get on the long-range transportation plan. They're going to do that. In addition, they're saying, how can we use that plan and manage our expenses to cover it? Commissioners, I think Commissioner Nothstein was with me. We talked to them very specifically. It's your responsibility, not ours. Tax increases for your local municipalities may need to happen to cover your infrastructure. But we may have a plan that can be using your tax increase, if you do, along with some county opportunity that we believe makes the most sense to support the infrastructure, and maybe together we could create an option that they've never had before. Because even though I'm urging them to get on that long-range plan, Commissioners, I demonstrated earlier, it's not going to move from that bridge to the tip anytime soon. That's why it's important. Now, This program also allows us to collect money, and I know you hate to hear this term, accumulate the money for times when we need that funding for a specific project. Commissioners, county first, meaning the first thing that would happen every year is we do our capital planning and we talk to this board about what funding we need to execute our plan. In the event there are funding opportunities available, I would urge the board to create a fund along with the executive that we would then use the PennDOT Lehigh Valley Planning Commission model for choosing projects, searching for those projects across all 5 of our Lehigh County districts to see what kinds of need are out there. We may end up giving nothing away. Maybe they're so small, incidental, we say, no, you gotta do it on your own, or it could be something significant like the unfortunate 873 Main Street, Walnut Street area in Slavington, which has a real problem right now. So, again,
Mr. Cheney, I want to caution you, we only have 5 more minutes.
well, I'm going to try to talk as long as I can so there's no questions. But anyway,
The reason you're here is so the board can ask questions.
let me add this. I'm answering the questions, Commissioner, that I've received so far. That's what I'm doing right now. The question is how many cars? 310,000 roughly. Non-exempt vehicles in the Commonwealth. There are exempt vehicles. I said that to you already. The question was asked. Do I have the breakdown by municipalities? No, I've asked for it. They said the best thing to do is zip code. I've asked for it. I don't have it yet. When I have it, I'll share it. The question is that you asked, are there any municipalities that say no? Well, I've never met a municipality that would say no to funding. However, there are some that say we don't have bridges. If you look on the presentation that I gave, there are several municipalities in our county that don't. And I reassured them, this is not just bridges, it's bridges for me, but it may not be bridges for you. So there's opportunities there. So, Commissioners, I know there was questions about our funding. I don't have the answers right now. I know we got some information. I want to put it together and do a little bit better job at explaining between the 2 different funds. Commissioner Holman, I'll have that for you, and I'll send an email back out explaining our ACT funding that we receive on an annual basis. So I think I answered as many questions as I could tonight on this. But I understand there's still more.
So, hearing that, what I'll do is turn it over to Commissioner Brown.
Just real, is there a sunset date on this piece of draft?
This legislation.
Yeah.
I like to keep talking to them, get somewhere where we're close, yes, as soon as we can do it.
I would just, me personally, if I was looking, I would look at a sunset, because one of the things that we as in government, the intent begins well, right? And then over the next few years, then we can, because we're paying off a loan, we can pay off loans with this, a specific loan, let me make sure, specific loans with these. We say that, we're going to give the bridges to municipalities, but how are we going to help the municipalities? I know that was in your thing. We would have a pool of money that they can apply for. I just want to look for a sunset date, Mr. Mulchaney.
I'm sorry, I misinterpreted. I think it made sunset when you would want this finalized.
I'm saying in the legislature. So,
it
is it
can
good for 10
sunset.
years?
I don't have a perspective of that. It'd be the executive and you deciding what type of sunset you'd like. You can create a sunset as part of this
Like
legislation.
10 years, or, what I'm saying, that's,
Or the city may sunset it for us.
Any other questions?
No, that's just,
Any other
resource time-wise.
Yeah, I have one question for you. Commissioner, County Executive Armstrong mentioned that, interesting enough, there was the one county I was looking at, that Dauphin County has no bridges. The fact is, they do have bridges. And the fact is, they entered into this program because all their bridges were no longer structurally deficient. So they took their money and they wanted to distribute it to municipalities. So they came up with an infrastructure bank, which was in the last issue of NACO in February, which was an interesting concept. I was wondering if you approached anybody in Dauphin County. It's totally different to giving grants. It's something that they would have to have a buy-in for, and we would give them a low-interest loan. So have you looked at that?
Commissioner, I have not looked into that specifically. I'm looking at it from a county first perspective, knowing that if we have an opportunity to create some kind of a fund, however it's funded, and the requirements, that'll be vetted. I know PennDOT, Jim Ritson, who's the deputy director, has told me that there are a lot of counties talking about it. Many of them have the same reservations as this board.
Can I help? Yes. Hold on, just one second here, Commissioner Graham.
I give you one more question. What are the chances of, can we add additional salary limitations? For example, out of Act 89, you're getting $19,200 for retirees. For example, can we make it a threshold of $25,000 or less?
No, you can't do it.
You cannot put that in the legislation?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
And going back to the original question.
Sunset?
Actually, I have reached out to Lackawanna County because they voted no. And I wanted to know. And their reason for voting no was they were afraid that the state would turn around and pass another law that said it would be $20 and then $25 for the fee. So we contacted Harrisburg. That is not in the legislation. They would have to, again, they didn't like the fact that the state had control. But the thing with this particular act is we can pull out of it anytime we want. We're not signing a 5-year contract. We're not signing a 10-year contract. We're going into the program, but we can get out of the program.
So I would like to see that though in the legislation.
The only thing is, the problem with that is, what if that 100-year storm, that 500-year storm happens, which we are getting more and more. So the fact is, we can get out when we want, but
Well, thank you for your answer.
that's just my.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob. We're going to have to move on because, do I have a motion to adjourn? So we're into the next session here. Right? So we stand adjourned. Thank you.
I know we're adjourned. I wrote to the full board. If there's any questions that you would like, please extend those questions to me or to Mark, and I'll be happy to answer them as quickly as I can. Again, there's no legislative action, simply we're working the plan.
Thank you.
Next is the Governance Committee. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:13. We only have one item on the agenda. This is the appointment of Janine Donnet. Is that correct? Denied. Thank you. To the position of Director of Corrections. Where is, I was going to say, Phil, would you like to come up and present?
In presenting Janine Donati to the board, give you a little information on how the process worked. We sent out 203 individual emails to applicants throughout the state that we thought would be interested in this position. We posted it on all of the major sites. And one of the things that I researched, it seems that the last 2 people for this position were just appointed without these searches. But we did keep it, we didn't go nationwide. And I think it's important that the board understand, maybe nationwide, I don't know what's out there, but nationwide wouldn't know the rules of Pennsylvania either. And I think it's very important that we had somebody that went through the process of being interviewed here, the process of competing against, I think it was 18 applications. A lot of them were very easy to just kind of say no because they didn't really have any experience running this kind of an operation. And here we had somebody right in our own county who the board just several years ago brought on to be the warden. We did a lot of checking. We talked with some of the employees down there, and I'm very, very proud of the fact that we are keeping somebody that's moving up within our own ranks and that meets the needs that we thought were necessary for this position. And the more I meet with Janine, the more I've looked into the background and some of the things she's accomplished as our warden, the more we've talked about some new programs that she has, some new ideas, some things that we've already met with Judge Reedman and Workforce Lehigh Valley, and we're looking at things like that. And I am very, very impressed with her, and I'm very, very proud to present her as the administrative pick to be the next person to be the director of our corrections.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. Real briefly, I'd like to say that, Mr. Executive, can you just stay there? I just got just two questions that I want to just start with. Who was part of the interview process, and was Courts and Corrections Chair and Committee involved by any chance?
The email went out to, it was Mr. Osborne, and we did have tried to reach Mr. Osborne, and he had come back that he can't meet during the day. So that was a problem there. But
What part of the interview process? Who was involved?
I had that done through the Corrections Department and our HR department, because that's what they're doing. So then when they picked, then it came up to me, and then we did another interview.
All right. I'm going to open this up to the full board right away.
Do you need me here?
Just be on standby. Is that okay?
I'm always on.
Thank you, sir. So I know there's going to be a lot of questions in regards to this.
Would you like
appointment.
Janine?
Janine, yes. Please come up, introduce yourself. Give us a brief synopsis of your background. You know, how long you've been working here at LCJ, and just tell us a little bit about yourself. Thank you.
Sure. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for having me. This is my 27th year in the field of corrections. It's important to note that I started my 27-year career as a corrections officer. I worked as an officer for several years prior to being promoted to the rank of a sergeant on a shift. From there, I was promoted to the rank of lieutenant. I then took over the training academy and used my skills, knowledge, and ability in training as a corrections officer to impart that into new officers, and ran the training academy and was instrumental in having the facility that I worked at become state accredited for the training program, to run their own program. I've worn almost every hat within a jail hierarchy. I've been the Deputy Warden of Security and oversaw the entire security team and operations of a jail. I've also worn the hat of Deputy Warden of Treatment and oversaw the treatment department of the Lehigh County Jail prior to becoming the warden, which I am today, of the Lehigh County Jail.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Hall.
Okay. What do you consider the essential components for maintaining accountability in the jail system?
Accountability, there's many levels of accountability. There's accountability for the inmates, and there's accountability for the staff that we supervise and we work with. So policies and procedures, guidelines, and disciplinary information for the inmates when they come into the facility. I believe that communication and information is key to holding people accountable. If they don't know what their job is, the boundaries that they work within, if the inmates don't know the expectations of them when they walk into the facility, it's difficult to hold people accountable. We do a very excellent job at imparting knowledge upon our staff. We do our own in-house training. We are a state accredited program as well, so we do 5 weeks of training in-house. We do in-service training every year in the facility. We also have, and that's for the staff, and the policy and procedures that guide them. We are state accredited through a annual audit process of the Department of Corrections, which holds all of us accountable for maintaining the standards that are acceptable and set forth in a Title 37 for the county jails in Pennsylvania. We have a National Commission of Correctional Health Care accreditation, so we have to meet those standards as well and are audited every 3 years. We also have a Prison Rape Elimination Act, otherwise known as PREA audit, that we've maintained 2 of those audits with 100% compliance. So there's many levels of accountability, and then for the inmates coming in, there's an orientation process, there's an inmate guidelines, there's notification books, there's case managers on every housing unit to make sure that the knowledge and the guidelines is given to them. So I think training and effective communication is elementary in keeping people accountable.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brace.
I think we've become acutely aware of the ongoing conversation about mental health, behavioral health, and addiction as it affects the corrections field. Be interested in understanding a little bit about the trends and issues that you see and how you feel your experiences and skills will help the county address those issues.
Certainly. I believe as much as we talked about accountability, that it's holding myself accountable for keeping an awareness and an education of myself of the current topics and the things that are moving, in not only Pennsylvania but across the country. I do that by first being active in the Pennsylvania County Corrections Association, which is 180 plus members made up of county administrators in county jails across the state of Pennsylvania. I'm vice president of the board of the PCCA and very active. I'm also a member of the Mental Health Initiatives Committee, which is made up of about 20 plus members from across the state, from the western zone, the central zone, the eastern zone. There's a lot of movement right now, discussion, and initiatives and recommendations being made in the area of mental health. Myself and the assistant director were recently in the last couple of weeks at Northstown State Hospital for a stakeholders meeting where jail personnel had an opportunity to sit with the committees that are forming the initiatives and the recommendations. I think it's very important that county jail administrators come together and have a concerted voice in this issue. Internally, we work very closely with our mental health clinicians, our treatment department, our security department. When we have an inmate that is having a tough institutional adjustment because of their mental health condition, we attack things as a team, if you will, and we get together. We come from all different levels of stakeholders to meet and decide on how we're going to handle the inmate in the best way possible and get him or her the care that they need. Unfortunately, county jails have become pseudo mental health institutions and have been burdened with the task of waiting for beds available to get someone treatment and to get someone competent for the courts to keep them moving through the system. So we are continually aware of that. We're keeping ourselves in the mix of that every day and maintaining our voice in the process.
Commissioner Hartzell.
I believe you were warden at Lackawanna Jail, is that correct?
Yes, I was.
And you resigned that. If I'm not mistaken, that would be tantamount to the job you're up for now, and that was the top administrative job?
I was a warden at Lackawanna, correct.
There
was
no director of corrections there?
No, there wasn't. It was a different structure.
So from your point of view, what happened and why did you leave?
I resigned, and I'd be happy to discuss that more in detail. Basically, I chose to move on into a different path for 2 years, and I involved myself in risk assessments in jails and worked for a company that produced jail classification systems and risk assessments for inmates. I went around the country and instructed county jails and facilities on that risk assessment and objective jail classification system. Unfortunately, the traveling and my children were young at the time, so I actually missed being part of a jail system, and when an opportunity arose in Lehigh County in 2012, I came here as a deputy warden of treatment.
Thank you. Commissioner Dockery.
Yes, the mental health problem interests me, but also are your plans, or how can the county, let's say, reduce recidivism? And what do you see as the county's role in reentry programs?
Well, reentry programs, this county is very progressive from all levels of agencies within the county, from the public defender's office to the district attorney's office, probation and parole, human services, drug and alcohol. I don't know if you're aware, but have you heard of Team NISA? It's been in effect for many years. It's looked at as a best practice across the state of Pennsylvania. They meet every week, and all of those representations that I just mentioned are part of that. They do a lot of discussions. There's inmates on the list every week. There's inmates on supervision that are on the list that they keep tabs on through our pretrial services. There's a continual discussion. We have a reentry group within the jail. So there's a mix of inmates that go on that may need housing, that may need a plan put in place, that may need a mental health plan. So every other week, the team inside the jail, along with SCORE representatives from probation and parole, which is special probation officers, meet to put plans in place for inmates that need special assistance getting out of jail and also re-entering into the community. We do a lot of programming within the jail itself. Our Community Corrections Center is very actively involved in programming and intervention and employment for inmates or residents at the center. We work there. We just met the other day with CareerLink in Workforce Lehigh Valley. Do some reconnecting there with CareerLink to, we already do job readiness programs at the Community Corrections Center. So we are a full force team in this county. We're very fortunate, the Board of Commissioners is very fortunate to have a very progressive bench and a very progressive leaders in every department. And it's ongoing as far as reentry with inmates.
If we're doing such a good job, why is our recidivism rate so high? Are we still running 50%?
I don't know that our recidivism rate is so high as compared to across the country. I do think that, it's a constant battle. We started a Vivitrol program in the jail last year. So we're doing our part to help affect the opioid epidemic as well. It's something that we are constantly running numbers on and measuring. We do 3-year, so we just finished up 2014 recently.
Commissioner Osborne, last question.
Actually, I see that it's late, and we'll probably have another opportunity, so I'll pass. Thank you.
Okay. Any other commissioners?
I can wait one point later.
Sure, we can do that. Absolutely. All right, Karen, anything else that you would like to share with us? Or?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I've been at Lehigh County for 6 years now. I'm proud to be a part of the team there. I have many of my administrative staff here tonight to support me. We're surrounded by a great pool of staff, and I'm never looked at this 27-year journey as a job, as a career to me. My passion for corrections has been the driving force to continue on, and I welcome the opportunity to take the reins of the county.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is the plan to allow additional questions, perhaps during chair's review at the county meeting, or were people looking for questions to address elsewhere?
That's it for the chair. No, actually, I don't need to spend any more time this evening to ask questions. We haven't received the actual appointment in terms of legislation, because we'll have another chance. And we could always ask offline too. Just want to understand.
Yeah, just so we're all on the same page, we've received the appointment. It's going through committee tonight, and then our first meeting in September, Mr. appointment will be up to the board.
Correct. Do I have a motion? Thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn for the governance committee? So moved. Second, Mr. Brace. All in favor, say aye.
Welcome to the August 22nd, 2018 meeting of the Lehigh County Board of Commissioners. Before we get started, I'd like to ask our clerk to please take the roll.
Commissioner Brace?
Yeah, here.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Commissioner Dockery?
Here.
Commissioner Grams?
There.
Commissioner Nothstein,
Here.
Commissioner Hartzell,
Here.
Commissioner Holt,
Here.
and Commissioner Osborne.
Here.
We have 8 present, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Zanelli has notified the office that she will not be in attendance this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I'd like to remind everyone this meeting is being recorded for the public record. And also at this time, if you please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sounds like you have a little feedback. Mr. Clerk, have there been any executive sessions held since our last meeting?
No.
Consideration of minutes from our August 8th meeting is deferred. These minutes will be considered at our September 12th meeting. At this time, I'd like to give anyone an opportunity to address the board on a non-agenda item.
Evening, Commissioners. Joe Hilliard, South Allentown. Diligently working on gathering research for the proposed $5 car tax. I issued 22 right-to-knows. There's going to be 7 appeals because some municipalities are being slightly less than cooperative. I can't understand why, but we'll find out. 13 responded, all within a few days. Again, basically what I'm seeing data-wise so far is the myths being proposed or talked about in the media that mileage and electric vehicles are depleting the liquid fuels fund is completely false. Municipalities have to massively raise their taxes to get the money to fix their roads. Totally false if you look at their uncommitted reserve balances, etc. And again, if it's the fault of their own decisions, their taxpayers should pay higher taxes. Why should the rest of the county? And I'm no advocate for higher taxes, but if my local government is responsible, I live in Allentown, I pay higher taxes all the freaking time. But I don't want the rest of the county to bail us out. In fact, the citizen activists I work with the LCA deal, the original scheme was have the suburbs pay higher fees to bail out Allentown. We pointed out to the suburbs, that was the scheme, don't bail out Allentown. They created their own mess. So I'm not being hypocritical here. So there will be 7 appeals filed. Again, I would say take no action until we get all this information. Now I'm hearing we're pivoting to, well, the county, we'll just do it for the county's benefit. Well, in 2016, Lehigh County got $320,000, $219.76 in liquid fuels money. I don't think you have any roads. So what are your bridge requirements? Again, all the bridges have been fixed as far as I understand, or in the process of. What's your annual maintenance costs? So until all these questions are answered, I'm going to say it again. This is just another cash grab by government that's not even necessary. You know, the last meeting, somebody claimed people who oppose this are just ideological. I find that freaking hilarious because if you support it, you're somehow not being ideological. Come on. This is a data-driven decision. It's not needed. So as I get more and more information, I will compile the report. I guess Lehigh County will get some right-to-knows now too for the last 5 years on their liquid fuels money and their expenditures. I hope the commissioners do a review of the status of all the bridge repairs and are there any deficiencies at this point and what's required. This is a total money grab on the working poor and the middle class, and it's not necessary at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Billy.
Bob Elbick, Weisenberg Township. I disagree with the prior speaker. I was here last meeting and I spoke to you, and I just wanted to reinforce a point that I briefly made the last time. Again, this opportunity is should characterize it as a local funds used for local purposes and controlled by local officials. We all know the problems we have with the state in the state legislature in terms of how they handle our funding of our roads and infrastructure repair. And I have to say, if I was given the opportunity to make a decision as to whether or not I would have the state legislature administer funds for our infrastructure in this county, or have this county commission administer those funds, I'd vote every time for this commission. Irrespective, and I think if you took a poll of the county voters, that they would also vote in the vast majority the confidence of this commission far over the state legislature. Now, Commissioner Doherty did mention that it is a responsibility of the state. I acknowledge that, to take care of the roads by law. But my father, a World War II Army veteran, always taught me that if someone's not doing the job, then jump in and do it for them. And I would ask the commission to think about that and do the job, take the leadership, and help out the county infrastructure as a voter and as a driver in this county. So thank you.
John Dodges, Emmaus, same subject. All well and good, but the state seems to be offering a $2 million bribe for you to initiate this thing. I'm sorry, it's pay to play. It's just coming from the opposite direction, and that's taken normally. If they have $2 million to give every county, you're close to $140 million. Why don't they just put that back into the roads? It's your job to make sure they stick with what they're supposed to do. You don't use them as a fall guy. So, well, we'll have to take over for them. Please don't. Hold them to what they're supposed to do. All the way down, school districts, county, municipal, state. Everyone's separated. They're separated for a reason. Please keep it that way. Take the $2 million right out of it. You shouldn't get that. You're taking it from us, skimming through them, and it's just not right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dodges. Would anybody else like to address the board on a non-agenda item?
I believe what I want to come here for is there is an agenda item for the study and recreation building behind.
Yes, your name and where you're
My
from.
name is Ed Ziegler,
And where you're from, Ed?
staying in Pennsylvania. I've been involved with the community center for over 40 years, and I've already invested my own personal money and services through my equipment stuff over $100,000. So I'm here tonight. They got grant money already before, but not from the county. But, and I understand that your funding will come from gaming, from the Sands Casino. Now, Walnut Court, which is across the river in Northampton County, they got $140,000 to build a new salt shed. And it came from Luigi Naples, my buddy who kept me in business when I was in the garbage business. So when you come up with that issue, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to tell you what I know.
Thank you, Mr. Ziegler.
One question, Mr. Ziegler, are you coming to the Rotary Club meeting tomorrow night?
Tomorrow, Thursday.
Yes.
Well,
I'll save you a seat.
If you're having it, where are you having it?
Nature Club.
The Nature Club. Yeah, I think I'll make it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have to go to Harrisburg, but don't know if it's there anyhow, even York, Pennsylvania, so we'll give it to them.
Thank you, sir. Under Chair's review, we have an update on board docs. The board docs library this week, Mr. Clerk.
Commissioners, I'm proud to say that all of our documents, that's board minutes, committee minutes, resolutions, and ordinance from 1911 as present, are now all on board docs and searchable. The last piece of the project is to work with IT and board docs and create an open page that gives people more information as to what's available. Secondly, since the mics have been some feedback, CDS group was in at our last meeting. They're going to be sending a report perhaps the report will change. They told me what their preliminary analysis would be. They think our sound system is good. They believe we need new mics, and they think we need to move to a push-to-talk system instead of having the mics on. Because now that the mics are reset, all 12 mics are competing at the same strength to be the one controlling the cameras. So they're recommending push-to-talk, although I don't have that formally yet. That was their initial conversation with me after our last meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Any commissioners have any comments on the update?
I want to say thanks to Dave. That was a Herculean effort to help move all that. It'll serve the commissioners well in the public process.
We'll keep it up to date, and
That's the
glad
easy part.
it's done.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. There were no appointments up for consideration this evening, so we're going to move right into old business. We'll bring us to Bill 2018-23. Mr. Clerk, would you introduce the first bill?
Bill 2018-23, setting forth funding allocations from the Lehigh County Gaming Grant Program for municipalities impacted by the South Bethlehem Casino, sponsored by Commissioner Briggs.
Thank you, Madam Solicitor. Will you please summarize?
By this ordinance, the Board of Commissioners approves grants from the Gaming Grant Program. Recipients are the boroughs of Coopersburg and Fountain Hill, and the townships of Upper Saucon, Whitehall, and Salisbury. Ordinance approval is required pursuant to Section 613 of the Administrative Code.
Thank you. Sponsor comments. Commissioner Brace.
This is effectively wiping out the funds that we have for gaming for reference next year. This is not a process that the county will have. The state will administer through the local shares program, so that we run through community economic development through the state. As I understand, Virginia's Haas is here to answer questions that we might have. We approved funding for the application that became completed, and thus have it for the program.
Thank you, Commissioner Brace. Any other commissioner comments? Any public input? All those in favor of approving Commissioner Bill 2018-23, please say aye. Aye. Bill passes. Mr. Clerk, would you introduce the final item under old business?
Commissioner Bill 2018-24, approving a grant to the Northern Lehigh Community Center, sponsored by Commissioners Gramis and Osborne.
Thank you, Madam Solicitor.
By this ordinance, the Board of Commissioners approves a grant to the Northern Lehigh Community Center. The amount of the grant is $3,250, and its purpose is to support a feasibility study for the community center. Ordinance approval is required pursuant to 610 of the Administrative Code.
Thank you. Sponsor comments. Commissioners Gramis or Osborne?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the interest, I see Mr. Kukitz is in the audience here with us tonight. He's the Executive Director of the Northern Lehigh Recreation Authority and is the driving force behind this request. So I'll just say that I'm in strong support of this, and I'll wait till Mr. Kukitz comes up and talks to it a little bit.
Commissioner Osborne, would you like to add anything?
Are you going to come forward and speak a little bit?
I'd be happy to if you'd like me to. That'd be great. Tell us a little bit about how the feasibility study's going.
Sure. You mean at the podium? Or?
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. Feasibility study is underway. We selected a firm, Kimmel Bogret. They're just out of Bluebell, Pennsylvania here, a little north of Philadelphia. They are experts in feasibility studies. They completed it for Bethlehem. Oh my goodness, I could go on. They had a list of about 300 different community centers that they've been a part of across the country, and they're working with Ballard King as the additional consultant on board with that. The very first strategic planning meeting that I would like to invite you all to attend is going to be September 20th at 6:30 at the Northern Lehigh School District Administration Building. We're doing this in partnership with the school district, and the new superintendent there has been extremely helpful in pushing some of these efforts forward. So 6:30, September 20th is our first public strategic planning session, and I would like to invite you all to attend.
Where is that meeting at? Did you mention that?
The Northern Lehigh School District Administration Building.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioners? Commissioner Osborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When will the feasibility study be completed?
We're looking at it done by the end of the year.
End of the year? And would you be willing to share the results of that study with our board?
Absolutely, 100%.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other commissioner?
That's the fundamental issue, but I appreciate the digging. As we've seen, some of the issues I raised take 3, 4, 5 years to finally get a real answer to. So thank you, I appreciate the work.
To answer that question directly, it isn't related to interest payments.
Correct.
So the definition of that term, the explanation of that term is totally separate of are they making those payments.
Except they use it in their cash flow statement. That's the dilemma. Thank you. We'll follow up more on that.
Any other commissioner announcements? Commissioner Grams.
This doesn't fall under a particular category. To share with you an event that happened to me this weekend. I'll make it very brief. I've known a young man since he was 6 years old. He just turned 25 in April. He's the first lieutenant in the United States Air Force. I was proud and privileged to coach him in Little League for 7 or 8 years. He was a member of the Colonial League Northern Lehigh football team, and he was the first lieutenant on the B-1 bomber crew. I learned this past weekend that he passed away, so I would urge that if you know any members of the military, reach out to them, give them a call, write them a letter. Life is short. All it takes is a hello or a smile or something to cheer somebody up and maybe prevent something from happening. So on.
I'm sorry to hear that, Commissioner Grams. Any other commissioner? No. Commissioner Dougherty.
Yes, being the board's representative on the Symphony Board, I want to report that they just hired a new executive director. They've done a national search and they brought in several candidates, and the new appointee is Al Jacobson, who worked with the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra as a development officer. So he's moving up to take over the executive director seat here. So he's young, he has a lot of really good ideas, and we hope he can raise a lot of money.
Thank you, Commissioner Dougherty. Commissioner Holt.
As a member of the Conservation District Board, I want to let everyone know that they're moving forward with taking on the mosquito control program, and that transition seems to be going fairly well. The board passed the first piece of legislation to formalize that process, and it seems like it's a really good fit for the Conservation District's mission and purpose. There's a lot of discussion around that, and that it will enhance the work that the Conservation District is doing to add this service to what they perform.
Any citizens' input?
I'm going to do a demonstration for you and you'll understand.
Backpedaling?
No. Since I don't know how many times I've come in front of the board to give you the date of the lighting of the monument. Okay? Yeah, and I've thrown my hands up in the air trying to get everybody on board at the same time and everybody happy and having the lighting being completed. It looks like the date now is set for 6:15 on Saturday night, October 6th, to coincide with the first Phantoms hockey game. Now, there's going to be a meeting about this. I was told, they asked me if I said I'll come, but I don't care anymore. I just want to I really am at the point. I stood here back in April going, Memorial Day, we're going to, then